Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to completely flip the script on what it actually means to be quiet on social media. If you've ever wondered about those folks who just don't seem to have a digital footprint at all, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to dive right into the research, break down the science, and get ready, because we're about to shift your perspective entirely.
Let me ask you something. Have you noticed the invisible people? In our hyper-connected, totally attention-driven world, almost everyone is putting on some kind of a show. But think about your own friend group or your family for a second. While everyone else is busy documenting their Sunday brunch from like 3 different angles, making absolutely sure the lighting is perfect before they even take a bite, there's always that one person just quietly sipping their coffee. They are completely unbothered by the camera. No selfies, no grand vacation announcements, no mundane life updates broadcasted to the masses. It's almost as if they literally don't exist digitally.
Now, our immediate cultural reflex is to just assume they're hiding, right? That they're just shy, out of touch with modern tech, or maybe even a little antisocial. But psychology actually reveals a massive plot twist here. It tells a totally different, truly fascinating story. Actually, scratch that. They aren't antisocial at all. They are deeply, functionally, emotionally secure. That online invisibility you're seeing, it's not a lack of confidence. It is a profound masterclass in emotional intelligence.
Okay, let's dive into this, starting with a core psychological concept called privacy orientation. Just imagine the sheer amount of mental real estate you get back when you stop worrying about how your life looks to an audience of strangers. That is privacy orientation in action. Psychologists note that people who rarely post pictures have a remarkably high orientation toward this. It simply means they fiercely value having control over what others see and think about them. They're actively prioritizing the protection of their own mental space over public broadcasting. Basically, they're building a fortress of peace, and instead of relying on the crowd to validate their experiences, they rely entirely on self-validation.
And this brings us to a really stark contrast that we need to focus on: internal security versus the modern need for external likes. Think about the default right now. It so often involves seeking validation through this constant, exhausting stream of likes, comments, and views. I mean, think about the quiet anxiety of posting a photo and then checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if it's getting engagement. It's an exhausting treadmill. But these invisible users, they operate on a completely different wavelength. They don't need to announce their life to the world just to feel good about it. That quiet, grounded confidence of internal security completely bypasses the hollow pursuit of external digital validation. They just skip the treadmill altogether.
So how exactly do they maintain that internal security? Well, it comes down to this brilliantly illustrated concept, self-concept clarity. Research shows that people who share way less online actually possess a highly defined sense of who they are, what their core values are, and what their goals are. And the kicker? They know all of this without requiring a single ounce of external approval. Because their self-concept is so crystal clear, they don't need to endlessly chase viral trends. They don't need to constantly compare themselves to others to find happiness. The happiness is already there, totally generated from within.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Because they aren't treating their life like an ongoing public performance, their baseline anxiety just plummets. Their confidence doesn't need attention to survive because they feel complete already. Psychologists find that this specific type of emotional balance makes them significantly less anxious and vastly less approval-seeking. They're highly focused on actual real-world goals. They aren't posting selfies to prove their worth because that worth is just a baseline fact of their existence. It's not a debate, and it certainly isn't something up for a public vote. They're way too busy actually living those moments to stop and prove them to the internet.
This profound emotional security naturally translates into cognitive depth. They are deep thinkers, not show-offs. People who stay quiet online tend to be highly introspective. They take the time to think before they speak. And when they do speak, or on the rare occasion they do actually post something online, people tend to listen. It cuts through the noise because it's actual signal, not just chatter. They only share when it genuinely matters to them or adds real value to the conversation. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the psychology driving that depth. It's a crucial concept called an internal locus of evaluation. This is absolutely central to understanding the invisible user. It means they measure their worth and their success strictly by their own internal standards, not by the shifting metrics or fleeting opinions of the digital crowd. If they had a great day, they know they had a great day. They don't need 50 comments to confirm it. Their internal compass dictates exactly how they feel about themselves, completely independent of whatever the algorithm decides to favor that day.
Because their evaluation locus is strictly internal, it directly dictates how they choose to connect with others. They naturally gravitate toward authentic, meaningful conversations over superficial interactions. Just think about the logic here.
Why would someone grounded in internal validation trade a deep, real-world connection for a fleeting heart emoji from someone they haven't actually spoken to in a decade? For them, the choice is beyond obvious. Real connection always wins over a double tap.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because relying on that internal compass means they instantly recognize the digital illusion for what it is. And that brings us to social comparison theory. This is the deeply ingrained human tendency to constantly measure your own worth against the highly curated highlight reels of others. The non-posters inherently understand how easily social media distorts reality. They know for a fact that nobody's life is perfectly color-coordinated 24/7. So by staying low-key, they actively and purposefully avoid stepping into this exhausting comparison trap.
When we contrast these two mindsets side by side, the difference is pretty wild. The frequent poster is so often trapped in a mental state of endless comparison, scrolling through feeds and subconsciously measuring their messy behind-the-scenes reality against everyone else's shiny highlight reel. Their priority is geared towards performance, always putting on a show, always curating. Meanwhile, the non-poster's mental space is heavily protected. They aren't opening themselves up to that endless comparison because their ultimate priority is peace. Staying low-key isn't an accident. It's a highly deliberate, super effective shield to protect their mental health.
So, the crucial point is, if there's literally one thing you take away from this entire explainer, it should be this brilliantly simple distillation of the research. They choose peace over performance. It's a conscious, daily choice to step off the noisy, crowded digital stage and simply enjoy the quiet, unedited comfort of their own reality. They would much rather experience a moment fully than perform it perfectly.
Ultimately, the science forces us to redefine what real confidence looks like in the modern age. It's grounded, it's emotionally intelligent, it's profoundly self-aware. Let's be real for a second, there's something slightly absurd about feeling the crushing absolute need to broadcast what you had for breakfast to 500 distant acquaintances just to feel validated, right? The invisible users simply don't play that exhausting game. They don't need to be seen by the internet to feel seen in their actual tangible lives. Which leaves us with a final, fascinating thought to reflect on regarding your own digital habits. Are you posting to be seen or to feel seen? The next time you encounter someone living life entirely offline, someone who doesn't post pictures of their daily routine, don't just assume they're hiding from the world. Recognize that they might just be mastering the truest form of confidence there is. Maybe take a page out of their book this week. Try enjoying a moment without capturing it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.
Welcome back